So it was a Tuesday on October the 27th, and I had signed off from work. Took my daughter we went to the hairdresser's to get my hair done. Did some shopping afterwards and came home. I saw 2 or 3 missed calls on my phone. The missed call came from my son's grandmother. So my first thought was, I don't talk to her that often, so I was afraid that either something was wrong or maybe my son's phone was dead. So I took the call. I called her back, and when I called her back, she said Monar has been shot.
On January 17, 2015, in Baltimore City, my brother was murdered on Baltimore City Street. He was only 29 years old. I was at work actually, and people was calling my phone, and I work for a detention facility, so we can't have our phones. And when I checked my messages, it was on my message that he had been shot.
On July 8th, 2015, about like 4 in the morning, homicide came to the door. And we were all sleeping, and I woke my mom up. So we came downstairs and they told us.
He was somewhere and he got stabbed in the heart.
My son, he was my inspiration. He was more than just my son. He was the reason why I, am the woman I am today. At some point, it seemed like no matter how hard you work and how much you teach your children to do the right things, the way that the world is now, you can't protect them from everything.
My brother was the best dancer. I know. My brother can dance from sun up to sundown. From by the time the place opened to the place closed, my brother was a good dancer.
He was very playful and fun.
Grief to me is a struggle in itself, because there is no right way, there is no wrong way to grieve. Everybody grieves differently, and my grief, at the time I was pregnant with my daughter Fallon, and it was hard for me to grieve or try to hold on to anything, because during pregnancy you are emotional. So I didn't know how to grieve or if I was going about it the wrong way.
For 3 or 4 weeks, I stayed in the house. I wouldn't get up. I wouldn't comb my hair. My husband was pretty much, taking care of the children day to day, because I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to live.
I think a lot of times we just grieve for the moment, and then you're supposed to be fine. But the Raise of Hope teaches us that it's okay to grieve. I was seeking some support for my family. I have support for myself, but I wanted to have a support group and a healing process for myself and my children. I was kind of reluctant and nervous, and I didn't feel like it probably would help, but I knew that they needed it, and so I signed us up for the program.
My husband would knock on the door, and when I realized he was knocking on the door, I realized I sat here for 6 or 7 hours just crying and looking at my son, and I did that for weeks. 2 times in particular, Mr. Gillis did knock on my door.
Once we hear there's a homicide in the city, we will call that person after we get the information from the police and see if they're interested in a home visit.
I didn't want to open the door for him. He sat here and I wasn't ready to talk. He told me about the Ray of Hope.
Even those who say no will ask if it's okay to send you information. Is it okay to call you from time to time to check on you to see how you're doing?
A lot of times we make assumptions when people are grieving, and we need to ask them, or we ask them, where are you? Are you upset? Are you angry? Are you mad at God? Where are you in your grieving process?
He was telling me that I need, that he really would like me to come out, bring my family, it's a good program, they have counselors, and I told him no, I didn't want to go. He came back again, and eventually after visiting me maybe 3 times, I finally decided that I would go to counseling. And I will go to the Ray of Hope, and I will bring my family.
So you start where that person is, and then you build on it. And you talk about it's okay to have these different feelings. Once again, because we're human, and we have these feelings for a reason.
The Rays of Hope
is an instrument in which we are a change agent for the city of Baltimore. Because if you help people to heal, then it's going to impact their ability to be functional in the community.
If you cut yourself, you will go and tend to it because it's visual, but pain you cannot see is difficult for people to manage. And a lot of times they'll try to tough their way through it, particularly men. I can give you an example of a family that came to us for Raise of Hope, and the male lead in the family, I really had to convince him to come. But the fact that I was there, as well as another gentleman, made him feel comfortable. But he was extremely depressed. He was extremely hurt at the murder of his son. And he was very injured. And then we talked about how males process grief. And he was very receptive, and he learned more and more. He really participated actively about in the middle, and he befriended another man there, and they were exchanging numbers, and they were supporting and helping one another.
My first session, there was a little boy that came to us, and he was having problems in school. He was getting into trouble. His mother had to go back and forth to school. And it was because his dad died, and he really didn't have an opportunity to talk to someone about what he was feeling. And once he started coming and he was able to express his feelings, and he was really upset with his dad because his dad died, this gave him an opportunity to express himself, and he was able to start paying attention in school more. His mother didn't have to come to the school as much as she used to, and it seemed like he was doing much better.
I do believe that if you can save a man, you can save a family. You can really help a family that way, and that's important to me.
I wasn't as open in the beginning, but after I looked around, they had several other people that experienced loss in their family, you know, from mothers who lost children, from children who lost fathers. So we had people around me, and after hearing their stories and understanding that I'm not crazy, or I'm not the one who is the only one that had a loss, you know, to that level, I started healing through hearing their stories.
We have different tools to help children as well as the adults in the process of grieving.
Some of the projects that I worked on to honor my brother at the Raise of Hope program were making pillows. Made a pillow of with my brother, and memory boxes.
This is my memory box. I have lots of things inside of it. This pillow I made honors my brother in the old times that we had. This is my journal that I made for the Raise of Hope program.
What I liked best about the program was how the survivor advocates individualized us. When they broke us down in groups, you kind of like had your own survivor advocate, and they individualized us and found out like what our need was.
I like the Raise of Hope programs. There was many kids that I can meet and play with after Raise of Hope.
It was age appropriate, so the 3-year-old, she had her, you know, her friends that were in counseling for different things they experienced. And then my husband and I, we went in another session.
One of the things that I felt that stuck out was that it's okay to cry. You know, it was okay for me to allow myself to show my emotions around my kids, that they needed to see that as well as, you know, just instead of hiding it from them.
The goals of the Raise of Hope program are to be able to help families acknowledge the grief and the death, to allow them to have a safe place where they can come and really deal with that pain, those emotions.
People feel safe, they feel comfortable, they feel that there's hope on the horizon and there's help that's coming from participating.
I told my daughter that my son was asleep, and they taught me that, you know, that wasn't going to help her to understand what really happened, and we had to figure out ways to help her understand what really happened. They helped my daughter to understand because she started getting frustrated. So they gave her books to read about what it means when you're no longer here and how you have the spiritual connection versus the physical connection with your loved ones. They gave my daughter pictures to color, to express how she felt, so she got to draw her feelings and share them with the counselors.
The Rays of Hope program is here because we want to help our families move to the next step.
The thing that changed for us is that now we do know how to come together when we have any questions or any feelings about the murder, that we know that we can talk to each other.
I think it brought us closer, and it helped us to deal with my brother's death as a whole.
The goal is to look at healing these families, bringing them a sense of hope where restoration is the final product, that they'll be able to be restored enough to begin living their lives without their loved one.
I want the kids to know that grief is a process all in itself. Don't try to rush it. It's not gonna slow down. It won't stop when you want it to stop.
One of the secret ingredients that makes Rays of Hope a safe place to come is the volunteers. We have very dedicated and committed community members that have given their times to the families and children here at Roberta's house.
To me, it's a blessing to be able to extend some kind of helping hand to someone that's hurt.
The reason I volunteer is because I've always learned from my parents that you have to give back. People have helped me through my life with different situations, and the best way to give back is to give back freely.
Our children and families who are survivors of homicide are the people who you see on their porches, their teachers, their social workers, they're your ministers.
I would have been a much different person if the Rays of Hope program had been around when my brother died in 1962.
Initially, I thought it was crazy. That's for people who, crazy and don't know how to deal with their problems, but it was very much needed. If you're dealing with something or you're dealing with a loss, I encourage you to seek the counselors at Ray of Hope. They foster a very caring and loving environment, no judgment. They listen, they provide resources, they hear you, and some of the counselors have shared the same experiences. They've had loss, and some of them are still going through the loss process. So it's other people like you that have experienced that.
One has to remember what the loved one who passed would want you to do, and they would want you to heal.